With HB 87, it almost calls for racial profiling, for police officers to stop people they think are undocumented. And I'm like, okay, what does an undocumented person look like? And when you mention Europe, I know living in the Northeast, and there are lots of Irish who are undocumented and living in our country. There are lots of folks from France. In fact, there's a story about a guy from France who worked here his whole life. He got diagnosed with cancer, and he went home because it was going to be easier, to get taken care of in France. We've got a panel here. I don't know if we have any questions. From Ms. Newell, a legal analyst here in the state of Georgia.
Well, I think that your points lead further into saying, this brings up the DREAM Act and why a path to legal citizenship is so important. Right. Specifically, these people came here as children. They had no idea that, their parents brought them here. It's through no fault of their own that they're here. And they are truly Americans. They've been raised as Americans. Yeah. And it's kind of unfair to then expect them to be pulled back and sent back to a country that they don't know.
Not only don't they know, I learned today that the Spanish we speak in the U.S. is completely different from the Spanish that's spoken in Mexico City or in Mexico. So you send someone back saying, go back, you're 18, 19 years old. They don't know the language. They don't know the city. I don't understand how we get to that point. Maria Duarte from the Georgia Alliance of Latino Elected Officials.
Georgia Association of
Latino Elected Officials. How do you feel?
Well, obviously, like she said, it does lead to the bigger debate of the DREAM Act and reasons why it should pass. I mean, currently there are 2.1 million students across the nation who could benefit from something like the DREAM Act. That's 2.1 million potential taxpayers, contributors to society, people who want to integrate into the system, as well as the Department of the military was looking at it as a way to increase military recruits. So I think we have to look at the larger picture and look at the return on investment that we're making in these students and pass something like the DREAM Act so that things like HB 59 aren't even introduced in the state legislature, because really it's a no-brainer.
Any other comments about how you think the Latino... What I don't understand, too, is that the Latino community is continuing to grow. We learned in the state of Texas that the Latino community is about to overtake the white population in the next year or so. How do you demonize a whole community when these are people who are producing, they're contributing to our society, they're paying taxes, they're not criminals? And these people will one day vote. How do we as a nation go about demonizing and criminalizing our citizens? Dr. Johnson.
Because it's a short-term political strategy. I mean, that's what it is. If you think you can get votes now, that's how most politicians operate. They're not necessarily thinking long-term. And most American citizens aren't thinking in sort of a global scale. I'll say this. I make regular visits to Mexico as an election observer. So I was there in 2009, I was there in 2006. The truth of the matter is, one of the largest parts of the GDP in Mexico is remissions from Mexicans who live here. If we did not allow people to come here, that economy would collapse, which would be a bigger problem than anything we're handling now. No, nobody in America wants to think about that. Right. People couldn't even figure out where Egypt was. But the truth of the matter is, if we don't take a much more global perspective on not just the people who are here, but the things that happen with our neighbors, we'll have greater problems. So, it's short-term political thinking, not just on politicians, but because American citizens aren't informed.
And we are becoming so much more of a global society. And it amazes me that we still don't understand that we're this human race living on this planet, and that everything impacts and affects each other. And the longer you try to keep this population down, for you to keep them down, you've got to stay down. And instead of letting these people grow, contribute, make honest contributions to our society, we seem to have lost our way.